Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know a few people have been on the Zoom room for the past few minutes while we get ready and get started. We have two incredible guests who are joining us tonight. I am so excited to speak to both of them. And I wanted to thank everybody for being here to talk about Sudbury's story of environmental hope. It's a story that I've been learning a lot about over the past few months, and it is so encouraging in terms of thinking about the future. I also wanted to let everybody know that if you have any questions, we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. Please drop them into the chat. And if you have questions for Dawn or Mike, then we will get to them throughout the next 30 minutes or so. So we'll try to get to as many as possible. Keep them coming, or any comments or any stories of Sudbury you have as well. We're also going to have a giveaway, and it's a pretty big giveaway. I'm excited to share more about that. And I'll give you all the details at the end of this conversation. So please stick around till the end, and you'll have a chance to learn more about the giveaway. So excited to do this. I'll introduce myself before we show a short video. My name is Amber Mack, and for 2 seasons now, I've been hosting a series with the Ontario Mining Association called This is Mining. And it's been a fantastic 2 seasons, and I encourage all of you who haven't listened to it yet to go to your favorite podcast store and subscribe and download and check it out. We've had incredible guests over the past couple of seasons, and we are so honored that we were just recently nominated for a Canadian Podcast Award for Best Branded Podcast. So that is very exciting. Okay, so before I introduce our guests who have been patiently waiting tonight, wanted to show a short video to talk a little bit more about Sudbury's story of environmental hope and give you an overview of what that story is all about and what's taken place over the past almost 5 decades.
Are the footprints of previous generations to be permanent scars? Or can the generations of today forge a better path? While many lose hope, we see where change is possible. Sudbury, Ontario is a testament to what we can do to bring a devastated landscape back to its natural beauty and health. 50 years ago, the people, governments, and mining companies in Sudbury recognized that no matter how afflicted their environment was, it was not beyond repair, and they took control of their destiny, coming together to achieve a remarkable rebirth. Almost 12 million trees have been planted, soils are returning to balance, wetlands are healthy and flourishing. And as we continue to mine the mineral gifts that provide for our thriving modern society, we do so with a shared stewardship in the wellness of the land. Today, green hills and valleys are being restored, the meadows taking on a painter's palette of color. The air is fresh and clean, the water teeming with fish, wildlife returning once again. And our industries continue to sustain the communities that live in this lush and vibrant land. Sudbury is a beacon of hope and an example to the world that learning from the past can inspire us to do better. That we all play a continuing role in caring for our planet. Together, we can rebuild the landscape. With hard work and hope, Sudbury is re-emerging, green and proud.
Such a great story. I want to share a couple of stats. Nearly 12 million trees have been planted. Over 3,400 hectares of land have been revitalized. And today, Sudbury has some of the cleanest air in all of Ontario. Now, we have 2 photographers who have been documenting this incredible re-greening for more than 40 years. First up, we have Johnston, who is an award-winning professional outdoor and nature photographer. His photos have appeared on covers for Canadian Geographic, Cottage Life, Outdoor Photography Canada, Ontario Nature, and National Geographic. Hello, Don.
Hello, Amber. Welcome all. Great to have you here.
And thanks for being here. Don, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Lively, Ontario.
Excellent.
Which is a little satellite community of Sudbury. So
Excellent.
We're in Greater Sudbury. Yeah.
We also have Mike Grandmaison, who is an acclaimed Canadian photographer and widely recognized as one of Canada's finest nature photographers. Mike was a regular contributor to Outdoor Photography Canada magazine for its entirety from 2009 to 2019, for which he wrote and illustrated a feature called Discovering Canada. Hello, Mike, and where are you joining us from? I think you might be muted. If you just click the other little unmute button. There we go. Hi, Mike.
Okay, sorry. I unmuted myself for a few minutes and then I couldn't figure out how to get back. So anyway, hello. Good to see you.
Hello. Where are you joining us from?
I'm from Winnipeg, right in the middle of Canada.
Excellent. Just wanted to mention that both Mike and Don's work can be found in numerous coffee table books, including The Healing the Landscape, which documents the Sudbury Re-Greening story and served as inspiration for the new virtual exhibit that people can check out over at thisismining.ca. And it's also part of the Contact Photo Festival this year. So Mike and Don, thanks so much for joining us. Oh, great. Thank you. It's show and tell. I love it.
I think the text is all backwards, though.
That's all right. It still works.
Yep.
Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to encourage people to check out the virtual exhibit that I mentioned. That's over at thisismining.ca. Maybe Chris on our team here in studio can drop that into the chat, just thisismining.ca, so you have a chance to check that out. So I'm going to get started with the conversation, and I'm going to ask each of you the same question, which I'll try not to do for the entire conversation, but I did want to ask this one. Don, I want to start with you. 40 to 50 years ago, what did Sudbury look like?
Well, I took a job teaching in Sudbury. I answered an ad in 1974. I was invited for an interview. I drove up from Ottawa to Sudbury, and I still remember just on the outskirts of Sudbury in Coniston, I was stopped for road work, and I had a chance to look around me, and all I could see was black, right to the horizon. There was no green whatsoever. And I kind of wondered, my friends in Ottawa were shocked when I accepted the job. And I said, I'll move on to greener pastures in a couple of years. I'll get some experience. And that was about 45 years ago. So that's the one thing that stands out, and that's almost 40 years ago now, 74.
What an incredible transformation. Mike, the same question to you in terms of what Sudbury looked like a few decades ago.
Well, I'll bring it back a little further back because I was actually born and raised and educated in Sudbury. So, born in 54. And so from that time, for me, it was very black and denuded, as Don mentioned. So I moved out west in the late 70s to take on some work. But I spent the rock, the barren, what we call the industrial barrens at the time. That was our playground. I mean, that's what we played as kids. I mean, we'd hiked on those. We'd hiked behind the mountain up to the Kingsway from New Sudbury. And, we biked on those as well, and we made our forts. And that's all we knew as kids. It wasn't until much later when I actually went to university that we actually learned what had actually happened in the area. Everything from, the fur trade that was set in about 200 years ago when Sudbury first started, to the logging and to the slashing that was left behind from the logging, and then all the fires that came along. And before even the mining actually started, it was actually kind of a bleak environment. I saw some photographs of just recently, historical photographs, and it looked pretty sad even at that point. So basically the mining just kind of was, the icing on the cake kind of thing.
So Mike, maybe I'll stick with you because one of the things we want to talk about today just is hope for the future. And really for This Is Mining, the podcast, that's been a theme throughout. In those early years, were you hopeful about the future of Sudbury? And perhaps when did you recognize that there was going to be a tipping point and things were looking better, or in this case, greener?
But like I say, I mean, it wasn't even in high school. Like, you really didn't think much about it. I didn't even take a biology course, even though I graduated from university in biology. I really didn't know much about the area. And it was only a few friends of mine who were actually very more environmentally conscious who actually kind of got me thinking about that a little bit more. So in university, then I went and took 4 years of university. And that's when I really started to learn about this. And, throughout our courses, some of our profs were actually some of those who instigated all of this process of regreening. So we learned a little bit about it then. And it was then that, I knew the profs, and I knew that I think, this thing could go a long way. Unfortunately, I had to move away for that initial work to begin, but I came back over and over, the last 40, 45 years. I've been back almost every time, every year to see the change and the transformation.
And Don, when did you realize that the transformation was going to become a reality? Because I think it's tempting for all of us right now to talk about what Sudbury looks like today, and we're going to share some photos from each of you as well. But what was that point where you recognized that, wow, this is actually happening, and there's been recognition from people all around the world?
Well, I don't have an exact epiphany moment, except that the blueberries have always been fantastic. And after I met Brenda, we bought a house on the lake and drank the lake water unfiltered for years. And there was, in those days, they'd be in the 80s and 90s now. There were lots of trees. I mean, the birch does dominate and aspen does dominate, but certainly more biodiversity. But the fact that now we can see monarch butterflies, which require milkweed, which does not like an acid soil, that's encouraging. Blueberries like an acid soil. That's why we have such great blueberries. So.
And Don, talk to me a little bit about nature and landscape photography and your interest in this space. And I know we have some photos that we're going to share. So perhaps you can talk a little bit about some of these photos as well.
Well, sure. I think a lot of nature photographers, professional nature photographers will kind of admit to having not had any formal training, that they just kind of get into it. You follow a passion, you learn as you go. And I'm certainly like that. I had probably in my youth a bit of an artistic bent, but it wasn't until I met Brenda. She actually bought me my first camera that was more for travel than anything. But I taught biology, and I, like to celebrate the natural things that we see through photography. And there's lots of pictures on the screen. Number 9 is one of my favorites. We have fantastic fall color here, and the fall color is emphasized with the white birch trees, but there is enough maple and other species, especially in the undercover, to make the fall color fantastic. And I've been to the Smokies, I've been to New England, and you really can't do much better than here, especially with all the beaver ponds and lakes that serve, to reflect the color and so on. So, gee, I don't know. Did I answer the question at all?
You sure did. No, you picked out one of the photos, and that's all I was hoping for. Mike, I'm going to go over to you in terms of your inspiration in terms of photographing the area. And is there a photo that you see here that maybe you could share a little bit more about?
Well, for me, as I said, I left the last 3 years I was in Sudbury. So from about 1976 to 79, I actually had graduated from university, and I bought myself my first camera in 1976, just as I graduated. So at that same time, or 10 years earlier, in 1969, my father had actually bought a piece of property just within the city limits, a place called Tilton Lake, which is the first photograph on the left there, number 1. And that was a scene. So for the first 3 years, I spent a lot of time, mornings and evenings, photographing that very scene. that's the bench that my dad would sit on when he was watching me photograph. He would get the coffee ready to come out, and so that's got a lot of special memories for me as well. But it's really here that I kind of set my roots. And I mean, I had I was learning about biology even more so, and I was learning about photography at that point, and that's really what got me interested. It wasn't really until another 20 years, like 1996, that I actually switched careers. After 20 years in biology, I switched careers into photography, professional photography, and now I'm celebrating this year my 25th anniversary in as a career. So, I mean, it's just a build-up of things. And so even though I was away for a lot of this time, as I mentioned earlier, I got back every year to Sudbury most of the time, sometimes 4, 5, 6 times, depending on the project that I was working on.
So, Mike, what keeps you coming back?
Well, I still have, all my family, and most of my family is still there, except for my own little family. Of course, my 2 daughters are here in Winnipeg. And so families, and I still have a lot of friends out there too. And in fact, I met Don while I was photographing on one of those occasions. And so I keep coming back for that to visit. And when I'm there, then I go out, and whenever I have a chance to go out, take some photographs. So whether it's on Lake Laurentian, just like you see on page number 7, number 4, those another friend of ours who I went out in 2019 when I was out there photographing for the Ontario Mining Association. So oftentimes, if I'm just going there to visit family and friends, I will go out and take some photographs. But oftentimes too, it's as I'm doing some assignment work, or it could be for the book that we talked about, Don talked about. We went back 4 or 5 times in each of the seasons to photograph. And sometimes it's just for my own library of images that I acquire over the years to then lease as for books, usage in books, magazines, and that kind of thing. So it's a variety of reasons. You always try to do as much as you can on each trip.
Well, Mike, congratulations on your 25th anniversary. Don, I wanted to ask you just in terms of some of the challenges of taking photos of the area. What would you say is the most challenging part of that?
Where to go. And I say that from the standpoint of so many choices. I'm really lucky. I know that we're all enduring this pandemic, and we're trying to be good Ontarians and stay home and not travel. Fine, but even this morning I was out photographing at a beaver pond, and I'm lucky. We have acreage, and in here in Lively, I can go within 5 to 10 kilometers. Number 12 was taken in Naughton, which is about 15 kilometers away. But I can walk out on my property. It's more of, what's the light doing? What's the weather like? Where are we in terms of ecological cycles? What might be blooming or what animals might be active. There's another beaver pond where I'm kind of keeping tabs on a family of geese where the babies have just been hatched out. So there's really no shortage of choices to, go to. And I'm a generalist photographer, so I've got long lenses and short lenses, and I'll take, whatever I think I need. And the encounters quite often are just, luck, if you want to call it that. But as I said, there's no shortage. Sudbury is not an area or an environment where there's a lack of. I would feel more sorry for people living in Toronto than in Sudbury.
Yes.
Nature photography.
I live right off Queen Street, and I would have to agree with you. Over the past 14 months, there are many places I would like to be beyond the city core.
I would be a street photographer in Toronto if I had, my choices. But out here, I just walk out the back door or take a short drive.
Incredible. Okay, I wanted to ask about photo number 2. I'm not sure who has taken that. That's clearly a before and after shot. So which one of you can walk me through that?
Well, that I happened to have taken the photo to the left in 1977. So that was just shortly after I bought my first camera. And I don't know why I took this photograph, but it was just, trying out the camera basically. And then just by coincidence, I happened to take this, well, this one wasn't coincidence, but I have done some in between. This one here was done in 2019 on part of this Ontario mining assignment. And so you can see the lake, parts of the lake in both views. And this is just to show you in 40 years, the transformation that is just really incredible. People who have not been to Sudbury, I mean, I hear lots of stories, of course, coming from Sudbury. And, those who have not been there in the last 15, 20 years would really not know. I mean, it's a gradual thing. So in the first 5, 10 years, of course, it's just, the area softens. It's not as black. It's just softens, a little more color, a little more green. And over time, it gets bigger. My biggest challenge over the years in photographing this area is actually even if you had the right spot, could find the right spot with the GPS, photographing that area is just impossible because the trees are so big. So you're standing in the same spot and the trees are 20, 30 feet. So you really need a drone to be able to photograph these exact same photographs now. But, it's quite an astonishing transformation, really.
I am honestly blown away just looking at these images of number 2 and just seeing the before and after. I mean, it's incredible. And to be honest with you, Don, I feel as though a lot of Canadians maybe don't recognize this story that, from what I've read, and I mentioned earlier on, has been recognized around the world in terms of the re-greening. What do you think people in Ontario need to know about Sudbury and the beauty of Sudbury that maybe they don't already know, or they just sort of take it for granted?
Well, I think they need to visit and get over the stereotypes that are associated with Sudbury. The moonscape stereotype is certainly was not accurate to begin with. Certainly photograph number 2 does suggest a moonscape, and indeed the Barrens were like that. But, just come on up, drive through. We're on Trans-Canada Highway, and, there's lots of cool places. There's hiking trails, there's natural areas.
I cannot wait to get up there for sure.
Don't come in blackfly season.
That is good advice. I do want to take a second because I can see the chat. Sophie said, gorgeous, beautiful pictures. Another comment, gorgeous picture number 2 really shows the difference that we just talked about. A bunch of comments. Sue says, this is why Laurentian's environmental programs need to be saved. Rhonda says, I remember as a kid traveling through Sudbury and thinking what a big black rock it was. Clearly, Rhonda has seen the transformation just from your beautiful photos. Mike says the abundance of color is awesome. Great photos. They capture it well. So thanks for everybody who is commenting. I do also want to encourage people to ask any questions. If you have questions for Don or Mike, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get time to ask questions. Peter says, great show. It's wonderful to look at all of these photos. I have a question prepared here, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. And are you guys okay with doing something kind of spontaneous?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so my question was to ask each of you what your favorite photo of the re-greening is that you took. But I would like to kind of flip that around. And Don, I'll start with you. What's the favorite photo that Mike took, in your opinion?
Oh, wow.
Come on, and be honest there.
Be honest. Turn.
And numbers will help if it's up here.
Well, Mike and I are both familiar with number 5, that little red maple on the point and Poitiers Lake, but certainly number 6 is a winner as well. There are just so many great areas, but notice that, it's a lake and a beaver pond, and there's 350 lakes in the greater Sudbury region, large and small. How many beaver ponds? We just lost one last week, but road closed. But there's just the fall color reflected there. It's sumptuous.
Beautiful. And Mike, of course, you had a little more notice because I'm going to ask you the question about I caught Don off guard. I'm sorry, but
Well,
Well, I've also had the privilege over the last 10, 20 years, or maybe 20 years, of getting to know Don as well, but also to get to know his photographs, because I actually one of his agents for his photographs. So I lease his images. So I've seen thousands of his images, and lots of great images, of course. And one, of course, that some that don't show much here, except for the butterfly one, is that he does some incredible wildlife shots too, which we don't see much of here. But anyway, if you go down to number 12, I think that's probably out of this bunch my favorite, because I also like Don. I like the intimate landscape, the small landscape. It's not always about anything that you can bring into the view, right? I mean, because that's something that depends so much on light, even though this image here too depends on light, but it's about the composition. And he's got a great sense of composition, and selecting the right equipment and the right time and all of this, it all comes in. But yeah, no, I really enjoy a lot of Don's work.
Well, thanks, Mike.
Good
to hear.
Nice compliments all around. Someone in the chat is asking, where is photo number 2? That is the before and after. We can probably zoom in on that again, just so people can see that transformation. And it kind of lends nicely into this next question for each of you. This is from Louise. Could Mike or Don say a little bit about the history of the re-greening and the collaboration between scientists and the mining industry? And Louise, or Lou, says, hi, Mike. So you have a fan. So, Mike, let's start with you and tell us a little bit about the collaboration that has taken place throughout this re-greening process in Sudbury.
Sure. Well, just to go back to the first question, where was this image photographed? The one on the right, I know for sure was on a Martindale hill, looking east, and you can see a bit of Lake Ramsey there on the right-hand side, the top right-hand side. The one on the left is in a fairly similar area, and you can see from the lake behind there. And actually, both of those photographs have to kind of crop in on both of them, so you don't see the stacks, the two stacks on either of them, but they are there. So I know it's pretty, fairly close. So, but again, 40 years of difference is incredible. How the whole thing started, I actually kind of left Sudbury around that time, but I know it was a combination of the university profs. There was Keith Winterhalter and Dr. Corton and Peter Beckett. 3 that I'm very familiar with, who also taught me. And they were doing some of the preliminary research to see what would grow, and how you would have to neutralize the soil and all of that stuff. And they got, started working the collaborations with the mines, of course, and with the various levels of government, principally the provincial government and the city of course, of Sudbury, who was primary, did a lot of the work, if not most of the work in here. So it was basically these various levels of entities, of organizations that worked on this thing. And it probably started like in late 70s when they actually started to do the liming stuff. And when I did an assignment back in around 2000, did an assignment of Canadian Geographic for about a week, and I spent that time there, and I got to meet some of these scientists as well, some of the other ones like Dr. Gunn and I got to know a little bit more about it. And just recently, Dr. Monet also got to meet, and he showed me some incredible stuff that they were doing with transplanting vegetation. So they were going into areas where they were going to be road construction, and they were excavate these bits of vegetation, 3x3 plots or whatever, similar to that. And then they would bring them up to Sudbury and transplant them, like you would do a heart transplant them in forests to speed up and to increase the biodiversity. So I found that really, really interesting. That to me blew my mind last time when I was down there.
Fantastic. Don, I was going to ask you the same question, but I feel as though you like the spontaneity of just going all over the place. So there's a Q&A section to our Zoom, and there's a question that came in from Sarah, and this is perfect for you. And it does touch on the re-greening. The question from Sarah is, through re-greening the landscape, the environment has become a lot more hospitable to wildlife. Do you have a favorite animal to photograph, or is there an animal that you photographed in Sudbury that you were surprised to find?
Wow. Well, as I said, I'm a generalist photographer. So moose, deer, fox, deers. I mean, I've had them all in the backyard. Really, not the most, but that's the reality. We had a wolf in our backyard this winter. but little animals, the insects, we like to cultivate a kind of a butterfly-friendly environment in the area. So I photographed the life cycle of the monarch butterfly right in the backyard for 15 or 20 years now. But favorite animal, I don't have one. I don't think I would be at a loss to kind of elevate one over the other. But the insects, the mammals, the wetland mammals, birds of the feeder, boy, there's lots here.
If I could interject, I mean, I've seen thousands of Don's images. Certainly, I lease a lot of his bird photographs. So his birds are done very well. And, it's a very difficult subject matter to photograph because, there's always a lot of stuff in the background that kind of interferes. But he's done an amazing job with a lot of his birds.
Thanks, Mike.
You guys
much appreciated. Hey, Amber, let's just go back. If Louise could somehow find a copy of the book, Healing the Landscape, I'm not sure, but likely a library might have a copy. Okay. I'm not sure if it's still available for purchase, but I know they've done a couple of print runs. But, Healing the Landscape certainly does follow the history of the re-greening, along with the photos that we provided for the project.
Excellent. I'm going to read a couple of comments that have come in. I'm going to get to slide over the chat a little bit because I can't see the name to one of them. I think it's M&J who says, I was on a transplanting crew in the summer of 1979 near Coniston. So thanks for sharing that comment. And Cheryl says, Don and Mike, your images remain spectacular. Neat to hear the story and great to see you both virtually again, from John and Cheryl, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So a few people, obviously you have fans who have joined today. I want to wrap up with one last question for both of you. And Don, I'm going to start with you. What do you feel is the most important lesson we can learn from this re-greening story?
Well, that it's possible and it can be done with people power. And while it takes time and it's a gradual process, and you give nature a start. I think on my Facebook page, which is public, at Don Johnston Photos, Don Johnston Photos, I think, a Facebook page. And the reason I mention that is because I just posted 6 images that show the slag pouring, the bleak slag piles, and then the valet's effort to revegetate the slag piles with a hydroseeding approach. And now the slag piles support quite a diverse plant community of including the milkweed, which monarchs like. So that to me shows that, okay, there was a lot of high tech there. I mean, they were blowing this green stuff all over the slag and stuff like that. But, I've watched during the project that we worked on for Healing the Landscape, workers with bags of lime set out on the rocks, throwing the lime over the rocks, which is kind of the process of neutralizing the acidics. And people power, planting the trees, that kind of possibility. I'll leave it at that.
Great. Although people can't see it, Chris was just showing me in studio a shot of, I believe it's your Facebook page. Just wanted to remind people if they want to check that out, it's Johnston with a T in it. So not like the Miami Vice.
First time I've heard that joke.
I know you've never heard that one before. We're going to have a great time when I come visit you guys in Sudbury. Mike, so that same question to you in terms of the most important lesson learned, and I hope this story gets out to more and more people, which is why we wanted to do this tonight. What do you think that lesson would be?
Well, like Don said, certainly it's a story of hope, and I mean we've seen that through the 40 years. And where there's a will, there's a way. And it's like any situation you look at around the world today. If there's a will, there is a way to do it. And so if you look at number 3, for instance, that photograph number 3, Louise mentioned about Coniston. This is from the Jane Goodall Trail, which if you would have looked and looking northeast, if you were to have been there 45 years ago, it would have been all rock like you have seen in the foreground. And so it's really an amazing thing. And then, these kind of projects are great models for what can be done around the world. And in fact, here in northern Manitoba, around Flin Flon, there are some gold mines there too, and they've had the similar kind of a devastation. And in fact, one of the profs from the University of Laurentian came up and got them going on some of their reclamation work as well. So it's something that can be done, almost anywhere. And if you folks, again, want to read more about that story, if you don't have the book, you can also go to my website, grandmaisonphotography.com. And under the projects, there's a section called Sudbury's Reclamation Story. And so basically, I just wrote up basically the history of what I know a little bit, and lots of photographs, and you can see the various galleries. And also had it all, had Dr. Corton go over it and make sure that what I was saying was actually quite true, because I wasn't really there. But, I love the story so much, and I'm so proud of what has happened there that, I wanted to be part of it. It's really out of my commercial photography over the years. This is the one story that has really resonated with me over the years. And even though I actually do a commercial work, most of what I do is actually on the fly. I just follow my nose, I follow the light, and I photograph what I love. And that's my passion.
I am going to wrap up soon, but I do want to read the comments because there are some final comments coming in. I think this first one off the top is from Jane, if I remember correctly, in terms of who wrote that comment. It was such a community commitment. Thank you, Don and Mike. Kudos to you both for your outstanding photography. It's a testament of who we are. Jared says, the start of the Sudbury story started with one person's vision, the head of biology, the biology department in 1968. Giselle says, photo of Laurentian Lake reminds me of hiking years ago on the nearby trail. Such a beautiful view. And Peter says, healing the landscape from the city of Greater Sudbury, and has left his email in the chat as well. It's about $50, I think, in terms of the price of that. So thank you for adding that into the chat. So lots of people having conversations in the chat and enjoying this conversation. I wanted to thank both of you for joining us today. I also wanted to remind people to check out the virtual exhibit over at thisismining.ca. And remind people, as I mentioned off the top, that if you like podcasts, please check out This Is Mining, the podcast, season 1 and season 2. Each of them are 4 episodes, and really excited to share all of them with you. Most recently, we had Minister Seamus O'Regan on episode 4 of season 2. So that's one you definitely want to listen to. And I promised, because so many people have joined today, that I would mention there is a giveaway. And this is so exciting, thanks to the team at This Is Mining and the Ontario Mining Association. If you head over to thisismining.ca to check out the virtual exhibit, you will see that there is a link on the top that says giveaway. And once you click on that link, you can enter for a chance to win a $500 gift card to 10 Trees. So a really good opportunity to potentially win a $500 gift card, very generous. And make sure you follow This Is Mining on Twitter and Instagram to learn more. One more comment, because I want to get this in, from Angela. I've worked with Don and have been lucky enough to see numerous slideshow he's put together. Thanks so much. Sophie's asking about the giveaway. Again, that's over at thisismining.ca. And Don and Mike, thank you for your time. I hope one day I will be able to visit beautiful Sudbury, and Mike, maybe you'll be there. Don, maybe we can go on a walk and
I'll be here.
After 14 months in the city, there's probably nothing more that I would love. So appreciate you guys taking the time tonight. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks to everybody who dropped in to listen.
Yes.
Yeah. Lots of people dropping in, a lot of people saying thank you in the chat. Thanks for being here. Just a reminder, thank you to the Contact Festival as well. Wanted to thank them too, and to everybody who is saying goodbye and thank you in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us. We will chat with you soon and appreciate your time. And most importantly, everyone, stay safe.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Mike.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Yeah.